Yeah, Mark. So we're just here to talk about the revised version of HB2 that the Senate is considering. That would allot $8 billion for public schools in the state of Texas. Um, you've sent out a letter to the community. Your thoughts on this newly revised HB2 and how it might impact Lockhart ISD.
Yes, so as you're aware, I did send a letter, and I think everything when it comes to legislation is in the details. I think that we are certainly happy that the state is providing additional funding, but what the details tell us is something different. I think the concern really comes that it's not for all teachers, for one, it's only for a certain group of teachers. And also, it doesn't include other staff members in its current form. So, teachers' assistants, librarians, counselors, office staff, custodians, food services, the list goes on and on. Not providing funding to give those hardworking folks a raise as well is very concerning.
And so, what does that mean for your district then? If you're not able to provide adequate funding to support your staff, who you say are not included under this bill?
So it would mean for most districts, if not all, in the state of Texas, that the funding wouldn't be there to provide raises. As you're aware, the majority of districts prior to this legislative session were already in deficit budgets. Lockhart, we had a balanced budget. This bill actually will put us in a deficit if we want to give a raise because all the funding is mandated to go to particular things. Local control is stripped out of this bill, which is a concern, which would force us to go into a deficit because all of the new money or most of the new money is mandated to certain things, and we wouldn't have the flexibility to give raises to others who deserve it as well.
So, you talk about it would put you in a deficit to have to give out those raises, and I know that means some hard decisions have to get made. You mentioned in your letter that that could mean some cuts to some staff positions, something that I know you are really passionate about having to avoid, and you were very proud of last year when we spoke when your Vader had passed. How difficult is it to have to make those decisions? And I know nothing's passed right now, but how are you either preparing or maybe kind of formulating a plan for what to do next if this does pass?
So we are very proud to maintain a balanced budget prior to this point, and if I'm still hopeful that the legislature will change this bill to provide the support to school districts around the state that we so desperately need. If we were to have to make some decisions, we are going through a process and looking at what supports are there for kids, because any supports that are directly serving kids, we want to maintain those, obviously. But the real worry is the ability to give a raise to our hardworking staff who currently do not qualify for a raise with this additional funding.
Does it help at all that Lockhart's a growing district, and so maybe you can build another school coming up? Your bond did pass. Is there any hope in the fact that you have some things coming in the future that could help out with teachers, or does that make things even more difficult now?
I think it makes it more difficult. As a growing district, we're trying to project. Everything is projections. You don't know how many people, how many houses are going to be actually built, how many kids are actually going to come from those rooftops. So the more we're having to project and the uncertainty that we have with available funding makes it a challenge to plan and prepare for those things. And I think that the real issue is that there hasn't been an increase to the basic allotment. And whether we receive more students, the fact remains that the basic allotment that we receive from the state of Texas is not adequate. So any increase that the legislature can have on the basic allotment is really going to help every school district in the state of Texas.
Speaking of that allotment, I'm glad you brought it up. In the original bill, the allotment per student would have gone up to $365 a student. In the revised version, that's down to $55. What can you even do with $55 per student?
So the fact is, the $55 per student is a wash when you look at just the benefits that the district would have to pay for the mandated raise on that Senate version. So Medicaid costs, TRS, teacher retirement system costs, that's not included in the mandated raise. So that additional money essentially would be offset just to pay for those things, which leaves no additional funding to give a raise to for anyone else.
And then I know you said that some student programs are potentially on the chopping block with this bill, and you talked about students are the top priority. Is there anything that you can do to maybe fight for those programs, or is there anything that you can do to maybe find another way to get those programs implemented, or unfortunately is that something that you would have to lose under this finance bill if it passes as revised?
At this time, I am hyper focused on doing everything possible to get a school funding bill passed that raises the basic allotment so that we can ensure that our kids have every opportunity that we've currently given them and opportunities that we want to provide in the future as well. And I think that those decisions, I'm still hopeful and have belief that there are good people at the legislature trying to do the right thing. The issue is the details really matter, and a word in legislation or a different line in legislation can really redraw what that means for student opportunities in the classroom. So until we have those details clearly on paper, I think it would be a little bit early for me to consider some major things like that.
And lastly, Mark, the governor said that he would, of course, pass a school finance bill. He would support funding for public schools if the school vouchers passed. The vouchers did pass, and he signed it into law. Is this what you thought support for public school funding would look like? Did you think it would come in this form, or is there a different vision that you had?
I was hopeful that some version of what the House produced would come after the voucher bill. I think something that gives local control to local school boards and school districts to really work with our staff, work with our community and parents to identify what are the needs in our local communities, because we're all so different, and having the flexibility to meet those needs with additional funding through the basic allotment was what I had hoped for. And I think the House produced that. And for some reason, the Senate has a different approach, but I'm still thankful that they've acknowledged we have to provide more funding to education. I'm just hopeful that they'll give local control to the communities so that we can work with our parents and our taxpayers on how to best utilize those funds.
Mark, is there anything else you'd like to add to our conversation today?
I think that when we're talking about legislation and public school finance, I think it's easy to look at large dollar amounts, but really the details matter. And again, one line of legislation can really change the effect of a classroom and just redraw what it means for student opportunities. And I hope that the legislature will provide local control for any new additional dollars to public schools.